The president was absolutely right in his address. There is a need for strong government oversight of industry. Since Ronald Reagan, the conservative governing philosophy has been that all government is bad. But, as President Obama noted, government could have been and should have been a positive influence over BP. Instead, regulations were lax and those in charge corrupt.
And tonight, I've returned from a trip to the Gulf Coast to speak with you about the battle we're waging against an oil spill that is assaulting our shores and our citizens. On April 20th, an explosion ripped through BP Deepwater Horizon drilling rig, about 40 miles off the coast of Louisiana. 11 workers lost their lives. 17 others were injured. And soon, nearly a mile beneath the surface of the ocean, oil began spewing into the water. Tomorrow, I will meet with the chairman of BP and inform him that he is to set aside whatever resources are required to compensate the workers and business owners who have been harmed as a result of this company's recklessness. And this fund will not be controlled by BP. In order to ensure that all legitimate claims are paid out in a fair and timely manner, the account must and will be administered by an independent third party. And BP will pay for the impact this spill has had on the region. The third part of our response plan is the steps we're taking to ensure that a disaster like this does not happen again. And one place we've already begun to take action is at the agency in charge of regulating drilling and issuing permits, known as the Minerals Management Service. Over the last decade, this agency has become emblematic of a failed philosophy that views all regulation with hostility. A philosophy that says corporations should be allowed to play by their own rules and police themselves. At this agency, industry insiders were put in charge of industry oversight. Oil companies showered regulators with gifts and favors and were essentially allowed to conduct their own safety inspections and write their own regulations. So one of the lessons we've learned from this spill is that we need better regulations, better safety standards, and better enforcement when it comes to offshore drilling. But a larger lesson is that no matter how much we improve our regulation of the industry, drilling for oil these days entails greater risk.
The Republican philosophy that says corporations should be allowed to play by their own rules and police themselves has brought on this and many other disasters. When Republicans were in charge, such industry insiders were put in charge of industry oversight. Oil companies showered regulators with gifts and favors and were essentially allowed to conduct their own safety inspections and write their own regulations. Republicans have been willing to hand over the keys of the nation to all these corporations. Republican Congressman Joe Biden apologized to BP for being forced to pay for the damages that they caused. Other Republicans said essentially the same thing. Congressman Tom Price, Michelle Bachmann, Rush Limbaugh, among others. Just listen to their outrage that the president would hold them accountable.
I'm ashamed of what happened in the White House yesterday. I think it is a tragedy of the first proportion that a private corporation can be subjected to what I would characterize as a shakedown. In this case, a $20 billion shakedown. So I'm only speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for anybody else, but I apologize.
Because I'm telling you, every time, this is just another bailout fund called something else, and we'll see who gets it. If Obama's past is prologue, and it is, then this is going to be used as a little miniature slush fund.
The president just called for creating a fund that would be administered by outsiders, which would be more of a redistribution of wealth fund. And then now it appears that we're going to be looking at yet one more gateway for more government control, more money to government.
What I don't like from the president's administration is this sort of, I'll put my boot heel on the throat of BP. I think that sounds really un-American in his criticism of business.
I just don't get it. Why are Republicans apologizing to BP? What? Don't they believe in being responsible?
Imagine that. Telling someone to pay their debt. Is that really so awful to tell rich corporations that they have to pay for their damages? What is up with these Republicans? Why do they always kiss the backside side of big business and stick it to the small guy. Why do Republicans want big government when it comes to you and me, while at the same time whining that big corporations should be off limits?
How is it a shakedown to make BP pay? How is it un-American? I guess that these Republicans just want taxpayers to pick up the tab. Gee, I thought that Republicans were anti-taxes. They must only be against taxing the rich. Hey, what is Limbaugh talking about? Prologue. That's a computer programming term, and I bet that all those ditto heads thought that he knew what he was talking about. I accept this type of thing from Rush and Michelle Bachmann, but I am really disappointed to see Rand Paul joining their choir.
Do you know what would happen if someone was to walk naked on this beach? They would be arrested. Why? Because it's against the law. Did you know that you can actually legally drive on this beach? Well, you can, but you cannot exceed the speed of 25 miles per hour, and if you do, you will get a ticket because you are violating our traffic laws, which are there to protect us all. Did you know that you cannot build a campfire here either? Why? Because it's against the law. Every day we all live with a whole host of laws and have no problem with it. So why do Republicans think that big business should be exempt and allowed to run free? If you or I can follow laws that say we cannot throw our garbage in our backyard, why do Republicans think that is such an imposition to say to corporations, do not dump their garbage in our streams? I wonder sometimes if Republicans have actually read the Constitution, which calls for the protection of the public's general welfare.
I just don't see how Republicans can claim to be for law and order until it comes to big business. To me, it all sounds a bit hypocritical. Why do Republicans think that regulation of big corporations is so bad? Don't they care about the public's safety? It just doesn't make any sense to tell the private citizen that he or she has to follow public regulations while telling private big business that they don't. This Republican crisis in the Gulf is just more proof that their hands-off approach to big business doesn't work.
What Republicans forget is that America was founded on the principle of community. We are not a nation of individuals, but rather one large community. We all live by rules designed to make living better for all Americans. The Constitution does not distinguish between the rich and the rest of us. In its eyes, we all are equal, but obviously not in the eyes of the Republican Party.
Throughout history there have been classes of people, the peasant class, the middle class, and the aristocracy. The aristocracy was considered to be better than anyone else. They were the lords and kings. The laws were different for the nobility. Usually, they could only get in trouble if they harmed another in that upper class. They could actually kill a peasant without any repercussions.
In America there is no aristocracy. Even though we use these labels of classes, that doesn't mean that any group or people have any more rights than anyone else. That is the beauty of America. We all are equal. Thomas Jefferson said it best in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
In America, the law, rules, or regulations apply to us all equally. To take that away is to diminish what our country stands for. We have learned a lesson of the need for strong and engaging government to protect us all. This lesson can be applied to more than just offshore drilling. This current Republican crisis should serve as evidence that the conservative philosophy of limited government is a failed philosophy, even as it is advanced today by the GOP and their teabagger party allies. You would have thought the lesson would have been learned after the economic collapse in 2008, which was caused by lax oversight of Wall Street, but the Republican Party is running in 2010 on a return to the governing style of George W. Bush. We're still paying the price for his presidency today.